one thing that from my mentors, they always told us, you always want to figure out why they're selling, and you want to press on those pain points. You always, especially in negotiations and talking to that seller, you're always pressing, not always pressing because you don't want to be manipulative, but you are tapping on those pain points. Like, look, I understand that you want to leave because, you know, somebody just passed away and you just want to be rid of this property. And I want to be the person that helps you do that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, let's go ahead and move forward as quickly as possible because I know that you just want this property off of your hands. So let's go ahead and take the steps to go ahead and do that. Speaking to that person's pain and letting them know that you are the solution to that pain point, you know, that can give you the advantage over somebody who's just sending in offers. They have no idea, you know, what's going on in this person's life. They're just trying to grab this property. If you have that connection with the seller, you know what I'm saying, you do have an advantage. Hey, welcome to Uncommon, a state of mind where we debate different ways to leverage your next investment to create time freedom, legacy impact, and generational wealth so you can live that uncommon life. But in order to do that, we must be uncommon. My name is Joey, aka Mr. J Mays.
Hey, and I'm Ademola Dawodu, also known as AD the Fly Realtor.
Yes, so we are back on our series. We already completed our first 3 episodes of it. I'm going to go ahead and pass it to AD before I mess this up.
The first 3 episodes were finding your realtor or your agent. Episode number 2 was securing financing. Episode 3 was beginning the property search. And today we are going into offers and negotiations.
Boom. And this is actually the last step of our series. So guys, pay attention. A lot of awesome nuggets in here for you to take into finding your next deal. Okay. So with that being said, brother, how's your day been?
It's been good, but I do want to touch on something real quick.
Go ahead.
So you actually mentioned to me recently about how the Hollywood strikes are affecting the short-term rental market. And I thought this was really cool for us to touch on because I didn't even think about this, but these are the kind of things that you beginning investors need to consider when you're picking your market or you're picking your asset type or whatever you want to get into. So please just, if you can, quickly touch on that for us.
Well, yeah. So me personally, I do a lot of business in SoCal, SoCal area, Hollywood, locations around Los Angeles. And for somebody who has a market of or a lead base coming from, Hollywood or film production, this potential strike it can pretty much slow down the revenue of your business, especially if you know that's one of your main lead magnets flowing through your business. I've already ran into operators who have, their numbers aren't the same this year because of the strike that's going on in Hollywood. And, they have to find other lead sources or depend more on the OTAs to cover their bases or cover their expenses for this month and to cover profit margins and whatnot. So that just goes to tell you that like you really need to pay attention of what's going on in your local market, in your local area, things that could potentially harm your business. You know what I mean? Like, so that one was a big one, and it's affected a few people around here. So thanks for bringing that up. Actually,
yeah, no, because like when you mentioned it to me, I really thought that was actually a cool thing to bring up because I was like, whoa. You know what I mean? Like I'm in real estate, like I think about work on real estate every single day. And it didn't even occur to me like how that could impact short-term rental operators in Los Angeles and Hollywood area. And then not even just LA, even the outskirts of LA in the Valley where we know a lot of movie production takes place. So, that's something for you beginners to consider. Like, okay, are you investing in areas where the job market is strong and stable? Because it's one thing to be recession proof, but then how likely is a strike?
Right.
You know what I mean? Hollywood, that's one of the industries that you never think would go away, but they're on strike right now.
Right.
Not just the actors, but the writers too. So that's a big thing to me. So.
It is pretty huge, bro. And honestly, and that's why you always need to diversify in even your lead sources, right? For some, I know me, I gear towards business travelers, but it doesn't mean that I won't take vacation rental travelers as well. You know what I'm saying? But I know that my property is primed for business travel. and sometimes you may need to pivot in order to fit the times. So just be aware of that moving forward.
Right. Cool. So
Yeah, so how was your day, bro? How's the drive?
the drive was smooth, man. It's a weekday, so not much traffic today. I got here, it was hot as you know what. But outside of that, I can't complain. Excited to shoot today.
Hell yeah.
We've taken a few weeks off, so it's good to be back.
Yeah.
How you doing? How's your week been?
Busy, bro.
Yeah.
It's always busy. Always busy, but yeah, excited to shoot, man.
That's
Get
what's
this
up.
done.
That's what's
Let's
up.
make this happen. So let's get right into it, man.
All right.
So pretty much, what is it? Operations? No, sorry, it's negotiations and putting in
Offers and negotiations.
Offers and negotiations.
That's what we're covering today. Awesome. So step number 1, the first thing you're gonna wanna do, build rapport. Build rapport with the seller and or seller's agent. This is really important because what you wanna do, what tends to happen a lot of times in real estate transactions or negotiations is one side feels like we're enemies with the other side, and the other side feels like that too. So you don't want a mood where people are like, no, like we got to do what we got to do, and they don't care about us. You don't want that. You want to develop an open flow of communication. You want them to feel like they can come to you with their desires, with their issues, and hopefully with the truth about the problems or the lack thereof of the property. So to do that, it's best to build rapport first. I've seen situations where just because I've asked an agent how his day was going, or he told me about something last week and I asked him about that when I call him today, I physically see them soften up and relax, and they're like, you know what, like actually this tenant, we're dealing with this and this with them. So it's good to do that. You just want to build that rapport.
So I actually have a question because, I mean, building rapport, you can just say like, yeah, go build rapport with somebody. But some people, especially if you're socially awkward, like you're like, how do I just like, if some people are not good like with small talk, like I'm not a great small talker.
Neither
you know
am I.
what I'm saying?
That makes us both.
You know what I'm saying? So in order for it not to feel like fabricated, what are the best, do you have any like tactics and ways to build rapport?
That's so crazy. This isn't like top-notch advice at all, but personally, like what I do is I know people like to talk about themselves and people like to talk about what they got going on. So I ask questions. I ask questions about your day. I ask questions about what's going on. I ask questions about what you're getting into. I just ask questions because people like to talk about themselves. Based on their response is how I know how I need to operate. Some people will start going into conversation and keep on going with you, and then you can, let that transpire and then eventually redirect it back to what you need to talk to. But some people, they're like, look, let's get to business.
Right.
So it's like, all right, I could do that too. Like, I prefer that. I don't want to have this small talk.
Yeah.
Small talk, I'm barely starting to get about it, but for most of my life, it's been kind of a cringe experience.
It is very cringy. Like, but weather.
Right. I'm like, all right, dude. Like, we know it's 95 degrees. We get it. I don't know how much more. Like, I didn't look at the forecast today.
Right.
Like,
it gets so, sometimes it gets mundane. Like, yeah, traffic on the 405 was so
right.
crazy.
Yes. Weather, traffic. What else is there, man? Like,
nonsense,
the basic stuff.
Yeah.
It's just hard to. I can't.
Yeah,
I can't.
But anyways, that's a good tip though for people moving forward. But okay, go on to the next step. So one is building rapport with the seller, which is is awesome. Is an awesome strategy.
Step number 2 is going to be set your priorities. So this is important, especially for beginners, because a lot of times what you see with beginners is they'll listen to podcasts like this one, or they'll listen to some other real estate podcasts, and they hear how people are getting these amazing deals, which is cool. That's really dope. But a lot of beginners get into the mindset of, oh, it needs to have all these things. And if you can get that, that's a home run. That's solid. That's perfect for you. I'm happy for you. Be blessed. But you don't want to get into the mode of just asking for all kinds of things that maybe aren't as important as it's more of just a win on the scoreboard for you, but it's not going to affect the deal.
Got it.
But then for you, you're just making an ask. For the seller or the person on the other side of the negotiation table, it's like, why is this person asking for so much stuff? Like, you know what I mean? You get that counter offer, especially if you're using a real estate contract or a counter offer form. There's like just different lines. And then they see all these lines of things you desire in the deal. That's a lot. That's a lot. And it makes people feel like they're trying to take advantage of me.
Get over.
Or, yeah, exactly. They don't just want a good deal. They're really just trying to just get whatever they can from me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why it's important to set your priorities. You don't want to just be asking for all these mundane things that don't matter in the end.
Okay, so like in regards to setting your priorities, like say you're going after this house, your first investment, what are the basic, probably the most important priorities to go ahead and list in order to make the deal happen?
I mean, that's hard to say for generically, just because that changes case by case.
Got it.
Some deals, it's important to ask for a tenant to be removed. Some deals, maybe no tenants need to be removed, or maybe it's a vacant, maybe it's a fourplex with one occupied unit.
Okay, so let's make a scenario up. So it's a fourplex. It's has tenants in it right now.
Okay.
It needs work. You know what I mean? And it's, I don't know, what other criteria could we add to it?
How close to market rent are the tenants currently paying? Because that's a big factor.
There we go. So they're paying like maybe $200 under market rent.
I mean, if it needs work, that depends on my seller and how they're buying.
Okay.
Because if they're paying close to market rent, a lot of my buyers are value add buyers.
Okay.
So they're looking to increase the value of a property, which having occupied units can get in the way of that. But if they're paying close to market rent, that leads me to believe that there might not be that much value to add in that property. You know what I mean? So it might not be a good deal. So there might be other things we need to look at that we can use as our priorities. You know what I mean? Or to see what really is a priority. Or if, like I said, if you're strictly trying to add value, that might not be your deal. Because if you're trying to add value, you're looking for low rents. You're looking for usually low rents. If it's occupied, you want the rents to be able to sustain whatever loan products you're using.
Got it. Okay, so let's say it's low rents then. It's not close to rent. It's low rents and needs work. And you're looking for some stipulations to put in there to acquire this property. What are the best ones to put in?
So I would say this is if you want to do cash for keys. If you have the money to do cash for keys, if you want to offer, 5, 10, 15, even 20,000 to a specific tenant for them to move out, you come up with a quick contract. It's nothing too crazy at all. And you have a conversation with them about what it would look like, what they would get, how quickly they would get their money, and how soon they would need to be out of the unit. That's possible. Or you ask the seller to remove tenants, before escrow closes or by the time escrow closes, or have a contract in place for them to move out shortly after escrow closes. So those are two options. A lot of sellers don't like dealing with vacating units. Either they held it for a long time and they have tenants that they don't feel comfortable asking them to leave,
right,
or they just don't want to deal with it, or they don't want to pay tenants. So that's something you have to navigate in negotiations, and you have to see how willing they may be. I ask people all the time, all right, well, is the seller willing to vacate any units? And then if they say no or absolutely not, then I'm like, okay, well, is the seller okay with us speaking with the tenants about a possible cash for keys situation?
Got it.
I ask that as well because we need to know what our options are before getting into it.
Agreed. Awesome. That's a good point.
Thank you. Good questions too. Number 3, stay emotionally detached. So this is pretty self-explanatory, but really in all situations in life, really, you want to stay emotionally detached. You really want to try and operate with as much logic as possible. I think we mentioned a couple weeks ago where a seller maybe the counter offer you get back, they said something or put something in it, you get all mad and upset.
Right.
That's not going to serve you. Anger, is one of those emotions that it only serves you in specific purposes. But most situations, anger isn't a good emotion to operate off
Do
of.
you know what scenario comes up in mind when you talk about this?
Huh.
When me, you, and Donovan try to get that dude out of his.
Oh my God, dude. See, man.
Yo.
So Joey has a friend who's a realtor also, and he showed Joey this deal where it's a man who's like behind on this house. He's put so much money into it, and he needed to sell. So Joey brought me, and we're talking to this guy trying to negotiate maybe an off-market deal, something of that sort. And I got emotional, because the stuff he was saying was just out of this world, and I was like, that doesn't even make sense.
First of all, one of the scenarios or what he said was he wanted to return the house back to what it was before he moved in. I'm like, no, you don't want to do that. You want to see what the market's doing, and you want to mimic what's going on in the market and what's causing values for houses to drive up in the market, and you want to mimic that. You don't want to return it back to what you had it before. You're not going to sell for very much. But he was just
so adamant, and he didn't know what he was talking about.
Yeah.
And the saddest part is I don't even know what ended up happening to him. I was keeping up with that property afterward.
Did you hear what it sold for?
No, what?
Bro, so the house was worth, what did he want for it? It was like 800.
He wanted like close to 9, I think.
I think he sold it for like 5.
And see, I'm really annoyed right now because I should have kept in touch with him because according to my numbers, it could have worked for close to 6. Remember, I told him about 5, and he was like, "Oh, absolutely not.
Right.
People are trying to steal it from me." And I was like, "Dude, like."
I'll tell you what, that's probably bad on us. We probably should have followed up on that.
We should have followed up. So there it is. Lesson learned. But anyways, like I said, if I had stayed emotionally detached, I would have followed up with him. But because I got emotional about it, I was like, I'm not even talking to this man no more. That was a good flip. Listen and observe. All right. So this is kind of along the lines of building rapport, but listen and observe, because what you're gonna want is you want to hear the cues in the language being iterated to you by the seller or the seller's agent. You want to hear what's important to them, because what that's going to do is give you an opportunity to find out their motivations, and that can help you craft your negotiation strategy. So maybe, for instance, it's a situation where maybe they're elderly and they just want some kind of retirement plan. Maybe they don't need a lump sum of money. Maybe they just want money every month. That might be a opportunity for some creative financing, where you just pay them out every month out of the rent you're getting from those units. Or maybe it's, I don't know, whatever it could be. Maybe they need to move out quickly. You need to see like, okay, maybe I need to find a way to have a quicker close. But understanding what their needs are, that's only gonna help you in the future and with the negotiation process. Because what you absolutely don't want is to not have a clue of what their desires or motivations are, and you're just like spitballing or making offers that you think are great, and they're like, this isn't really it. You know what I mean? So you really want to be aware of that.
Agreed.
Number 5, inspect the property. So I actually advise for everybody to conduct a property inspection. Those that are very savvy or very experienced, maybe they don't need to, I get it. But especially beginners, I really think inspecting the property is important, not just so you can know what's going on with that asset, but then also because let's say the roof is in horrible condition and the listing said nothing about a bad roof, or nobody ever told you about a roof in bad condition. That's now a negotiation point that you can take back, and it's like, you know what? Maybe we negotiated for $750. This is gonna cost at least $40,000. Like now my offer is at $690. Whatever it might be, you know what I mean? It could be anything, or maybe you have pipes bursted in the wall and they didn't know. Maybe they didn't know, or maybe they didn't tell you. Either one could happen. So it's like, that's why it's important to have a negotiation. You really want to know what kind of asset you're getting into beforehand.
To be honest with you, the way that I was taught is you make sure that it's in your contract that the sale of the property is subject to the inspection.
So, all right. So we're kind of gonna touch on that. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
So depending on how you're buying the property,
Yeah.
if you're using a loan or if you're a cash buyer, it might be more advantageous to you to put no inspection contingency and or no loan contingency in that. So what that means is, if I'm using an FHA or a conventional loan, the bank isn't going to let you buy a property without that inspection, and that inspection can hold up the deal if they feel as if there's too much damage in there for somebody to go and purchase this property as a primary residence, whether it's a single family, condo, or 2 to 4 unit. So, but like I said, if you're using other loan types or your funding is different than those standards, it might be advantageous to you to put no inspection contingency. That doesn't mean that you don't get an inspection. So a good realtor or a good agent knows how you can get out of a deal even if you have no contingencies on it. But that doesn't mean to not get any inspection. Okay. Like, that's kind of crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's just the way that we did it. We made sure that we had a subject to inspection, so that way, no matter what, what was going on, and understand, as the buyer of a property, you hold a lot of the power. You hold most of the power, actually.
Most of the power.
So,
in a standard contract, you hold most of the power.
Yeah, exactly. So you can go in and inspect, and as AD said, you can use some of the things that you find as negotiation tactics to go ahead and lower that purchase price. But I think that's all I got on that, bro. That's good stuff.
Cool. So moving right along, this is understand seller's perspective. So kind of linked back to that listen and observe, but understanding their perspective means you really need to know why, knowing why that seller is selling can help you tailor your negotiation, tailor your offer or your counter offer to their needs. So again, like I said, it really goes back to that listen and observe point, where you have to really understand and know what their desires are, what their motivations are. Why are you selling? I ask agents all the time, like, so why are they even selling? Like, what's going on? They might tell you, like, look, an asteroid came through the ceiling, you know what I mean? Or the tenant in the bottom unit is crazy and has, like, people coming over that are damaging the property. Whatever it may be, sellers sell properties for all types of reasons. Yeah. But if you don't know why, you're just in the dark and you can't make an offer and you can't negotiate according to their needs.
Right.
And what that does is it makes your offer or counter offer less desirable, and they may jump out of escrow or okay, so technically, if you're in negotiations and sending offers and counter offers back and forth, technically they can't receive or take an offer from someone else. But everybody knows that they're always receiving offers from people. Mm-hmm. They just can't technically on paper entertain those offers until they're out of escrow with you. Mm-hmm. So you don't want them to hear something from someone else and then be like, you know what, like, let's close this whole situation and then move on, because it just happens. You don't want to miss out on a good deal because you didn't understand what it is that they're looking for. So
right. And one thing that from my mentors, they always told us, you always want to figure out why they're selling, and you want to press on those pain points. You always, especially in negotiations and talking to that seller, you're always pressing, not always pressing because you don't want to be manipulative, but you are tapping on those pain points. Like, look, I understand that you want to leave because, somebody just passed away and you just want to be rid of this property. And I want to be the person that helps you do that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, let's go ahead and move forward as quickly as possible because I know that you just want this property off of your hands. So let's go ahead and take the steps to go ahead and do that. Speaking to that person's pain and letting them know that you are the solution to that pain point, that can give you the advantage over somebody who's just sending in offers. They have no idea, what's going on in this person's life. They're just trying to grab this property. If you have that connection with the seller, you know what I'm saying, you do have an advantage. So
yes, exactly. You definitely have an advantage. And then also, Joey touched on a connection with the seller. That's big because you can get an offer approved just because there's a specific connection with you. It's not unheard of. It really does happen. Honestly, what I think my first or my second deal ever that closed because I had a connection with that realtor. And because I had a connection with that realtor, he pushed for my offer to go through more so than the one they already had.
That's awesome.
So it's a big thing. So like make that connection, understand their perspective, and try to come from their point of view. It's really important. And number 7, be patient. Right? Be patient. This is big, and I can't emphasize how big it is. Negotiations can take time. Avoid rushing decisions that you might regret later on. So, I mean, I don't even know if I need to explain that much more than that, but you don't want to rush into a decision that later on you're looking like, oh, okay, I was moving too fast. You know, you don't want to later figure out that because you skipped certain steps or you skipped points or you were in such a hurry to get this deal. And I get it. It's an exciting process, especially your first deal, first, second deal. Like all of us beginners, that stuff is fun and it's exciting. And you want to hurry up and close before something happens that makes you not close. Yeah. My mentor actually helped me with this because I used to be very, very trigger happy. And he was like, look, if it doesn't close, it's something else gonna close. But you can't be out here rushing and like letting stuff slide just because you wanna hurry up and close. You know what I mean? And it's a mentality you need to develop. Yeah. If you don't have it already, you need to develop that. Just be patient, make sure you see all angles, make sure you figure out your exit strategy, you know, figure all those things out. Don't be in a rush just to get a deal for the sake of saying you have a deal.
Right. So
you know?
Something I did want to touch on, because it's very important that we haven't really talked about, but we do need to discuss exit strategies within the contracts. But before we do that, I did want to touch on what you said. Like one of my mentors, they said you need to analyze it. You'll probably analyze 100 deals before you find that one that's just like the perfect one.
I'm so glad you said that. Dude.
So it's for like, you have to have, as AD already alluded to, you have to set your criteria, right? And if these properties don't meet your criteria, no matter how great it looks, or how attractive that deal looks, if it's not fitting into your criteria, you pass on from it and you go to the next one. Super important that you keep that mindset, because then you're going to make sure you land in the perfect deal for you, and you can, you have everything, or you know exactly how to manage this deal because it's the one that you prepared for and the one that you've pretty much designed for yourself.
Yeah, no, for real. We touched on crystal clear criteria real quick. It goes back to that. If it's too far away from what you initially were trying to do or buy, and you can't negotiate it to that, you have to be willing to move on. And that's where being patient really comes into play. You have to be willing to look for the next one and just keep it pushing, because most your offers, most things that come to your lap, they're not going to work out. It's just a fact of the matter. Like, until you get to a point where your leads are just top notch and pristine, which most people don't have, almost nobody has just like leads that are always going to close. Most people don't, but the best investors understand the idea of volume. It's really about volume, putting out as many quality offers as possible, and eventually one of them will land.
And also developing relationships, because if you can find the right agents to work with, and they know your criteria and they know that you're quick to close or whatever your strengths are, they'll know your investor criteria, and anytime that they run across it, they'll just send it your way. So it'll be easy for you to just get into that next deal because they already know what you like.
That's actually my business model. So if you're looking to buy multifamily in Southern California, hit your boy, AD the Fly Realtor. You know what it is. But no, he is right. Like, if I know your criteria, I know how much you can spend, how much you have on hand, and what kind of return you need or what kind of exit strategy you need, I can put in offers on your behalf, or I can just send you deals and we can discuss if like that's something you want to move forward with. Number 8, this is counter offers. I put here, be prepared to negotiate back and forth. Don't be afraid to counter offer, but do so respectfully. This is again goes back to like being patient. Counter offers. So once I send an offer for your property, if they don't accept right away, but they don't just flat out deny me, or they don't respond, but they send a counter back. If I don't agree with those terms, then I can send a counter back. That's really what counter offers are, and counter offers can continue. It's like a ping pong, like it'll bounce back and forth, back and forth. Don't be afraid to keep sending out counter offers, because you can eventually land on that one counter, or like, again, so now saying this, it leads me to like want to tell you this. This is why this whole list is all important to use at the same time. You know what I mean? Because while you're sending the counter offers, you have to be patient. But then also while you're being patient, you have to set your priorities, because you don't want to keep putting things in counter offers that don't matter to your bottom line. But then while you're doing that, you want to listen and observe to find out what it is that they need from the deal. So all these things kind of work synergistically.
Yeah.
That's the word, right?
Yeah, it is.
Synergistically. They all work together for advantageous outcome. So that's why it's really important to really think about these things and use them for yourself, and then make sure that your agent, if you have one, is on that kind of mindset, because some agents aren't, and some agents get annoyed and don't want to keep on going. But you have to be willing to go that extra mile to close on these deals, especially your first deal, because that's almost always going to be one of your hardest deals, that first one. So just keep on going and don't give up. Like, really don't give up.
It may be one of your hardest deals to get into, but it should be probably the easiest investment that you're in, because you have the criteria set to make it as easy as possible for you to succeed. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's probably why it's going to be your hardest, because it needs to be a cookie cutter. It needs to be a cookie cutter shape, or it needs to fit your criteria perfectly, right? And as you get experience as an investor, that's when you can kind of broaden your scope,
more risks,
and take on more risks, and then you can start accepting offers that aren't exactly cookie cutter, but you know how to work them. You know?
Exactly. I like that. Last point number 9 I have for you today: highlight your strengths. So whatever your strength may be, if you have no contingencies, keep reiterating that. If you can close quickly, keep reiterating that. If you have a high EMD, which is a earnest money deposit, keep reiterating that, because you want, for whatever makes your offer potentially more appealing than another offer, you want to keep reminding them of that. You know what I mean? Because there may be some things in your offers or your counter offers that are a lot less desirable, but you have to stick to the things that make your offer desirable. Maybe you don't have a high EMD. Maybe you don't, maybe you can't close that quickly. Maybe you need 30 days. Maybe you need more than 30 days. But maybe what you can do is like guarantee that you will close. So that's a big deal. Like, knowing that you can close, like, that's something to iterate to the seller, because not a lot of deals can't close. A lot of people get into deals maybe with a wholesaler, or maybe with somebody who's looking for something specific, and those deals don't end up closing. If you can guarantee that you will close, that can entice somebody more. So don't be discouraged by whatever your offer is lacking, but stick to what your offer does have that is good for them, because ultimately that's going to be the thing that makes them decide, all right, I'm going to go with this offer. Or what happens often, they might not go with your offer, but they spin the block, and they come back around when something else doesn't work out, and they're like, hey, you know what? Your offer doesn't look so bad after all. You know, trust me, it happens. It does. It happens a lot, especially dealing with distressed properties. They come back around and they're like, okay, maybe I was a little out of pocket. I was tripping a little, like the one we missed out on.
Yeah, man.
This guy didn't want to take our offer. Turns out he should have taken our offer, because he would have closed before he did.
For more money too.
For more money. Because like I said, my numbers penciled out at closer to 600. Homie sold for 500. That's wild to me. I'm really kind of upset about that. But I'm more upset at myself for even getting upset, if you know what I mean. But anyways,
I hear that. Well, that's,
right.
We'll leave it.
That's
Hey,
the list, though.
So one thing I did want to touch on, because it's very important, especially going into investing, to know your exit strategies, right?
Okay.
If you have a realtor, they could actually, or an agent that could actually help you construct that. But for those of you who want to go at it on your own, what are the best exit strategies to have in your contract?
In the contract specifically, so
Or maybe not just in the contract specifically, but exit strategies, period.
okay, so period, you just really, what you really want to do is you want to know what your goals are. So are you looking to buy and hold? You know what I mean? Or are you looking to flip it? Because that can drastically change how you proceed with that property. But also, knowing your exit strategies, you need to know that if stuff goes awry, like what is your capability? So let's say your plan was to buy and hold. You need to buy it at a price good enough, or if you wanted to buy at value and hold, you need to buy it at a price good enough that if it doesn't work out for you, you can still sell it for at least enough to get your money back. You want to be able to always get your money back. Ideally, you'd like to get more than what you put into it back. That doesn't always work out, but you need to always be able to get that money back because you want your capital. That capital is what can allow you to get another deal under contract. With capital, there's so much just options. Right. You know what I mean? Maybe your strategy is, okay, I'm trying to flip it. So you need to know what kind of exit strategies you have. Maybe there are scenarios where somebody will buy a property and their plan is to flip it. Their plan is to flip it, but the economic climate changed or shifted on them.
Which it just did.
Right. And now maybe instead of flipping it, they need to rent it out. And it turns into a buy and hold.
Right.
And it actually happens more than you would think. You know, these HGTV shows make you think that like, oh, when you flip it, you get it, you spin it. But it's like, nah, man, it doesn't always happen like that. So like, I was talking to a guy a couple months ago and he was telling me that his last 2 properties, that I won't say 2, maybe it was 3 properties, he ended up needing to hold them and his plan was to flip them. So it made me think, okay, either one, he didn't do enough like work on the front end to get into an asset that works for his goals, or 2, maybe things were just super rocky on him and super shifted and the climate changed and now he's like, I need to hold it. So he's now in a situation where, okay, he's trying to refinance, but these interest rates are doing what the interest rates are doing, and he's got a lot going on. So it's a whole different situation.
Well, that's the thing. Like I talked to a lot of investors who were investing back in 2008, and they said when the housing market crashed, all their flips turned into just fix and holds.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And that's the thing. Like there's nothing wrong with pivoting your strategy, but you need to make sure you're in the correct market to do that. So especially if this is your first investment, if I was going into it, I'd be like, okay, I want to make sure that if I have to flip this property, it's in a desirable area and there's a lot of activity with people buying property. I have to make sure that this area is robust in the job market, so people would want to stay here. You know what I'm saying? So if I have to go into a buy and hold, I would automatically have tenants. Like it wouldn't have to look that hard.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So you would want to make sure you cover all bases just in case, plan A doesn't work, for sure.
This is why I'm big on like the LA market or investing in metro areas, just because it often allows for different exit strategies, because if you can hold a property long enough, it's always going to rebound. You know what I mean? It may not rebound in the amount of time you wanted to or think that you needed to, but like properties in good areas or in metro areas, they always rebound. Like,
and don't get me wrong, like if you know your market, if you know how your market, wherever you are, how it works, if you know that property values usually do well there and you're stuck in a buy and hold situation, you know that you just got to hold it for a little bit. You
just got to hold it. Yeah. And sometimes that's what it is. But it's like, if you have decent rents in that area, hopefully, ideally, that could sustain your loan payment, or maybe you need to yeah, you might need to figure it out, but
Right.
the longer you can hold, the better you'll be. One thing I always say is that the only two times the value of that property matters are when you buy it and when you sell it. Those are the only times. The whole time you're holding it in between, it doesn't matter as much. So if I'm renting it out and people are paying my mortgage, it doesn't matter what that property is worth. What matters is when you're ready to sell it. So don't get, if you can hold a property long enough, don't get too caught up in how much it is right now today. If you can sell it in a few years, that's when it really matters how much that property is worth at that time.
Right. As long as it's cash flowing and you're able to pay your expenses and, you know, maybe even have a little bit on the side if you can.
Yeah.
But as long as you're able to sustain that property
Right.
with that cash flow, you know,
Right.
you can rock
I
the boat.
mean, like I get what Joey's saying by cash flow, but technically cash flow means money for your pocket. I'm really of the mindset that even if it's not providing you extra money, but the property completely debt services,
Right.
which means it covers itself totally, man, that's a good property, real
Right.
talk. Because again, if you're in a metro area, rent next year is going to be higher, and everybody's rent is going up every single year. So, you know what I mean? So maybe year one, all it can do is cover itself. Year two, you got a little bit of money for your pocket. Year three, a little bit more. By the time we get to year five, and so on and so forth, you could start balling.
And God forbid you start using it as a STR.
Come on, man. Shut the door. Shut the door. But
Let me
anyways.
tell you. Well, then we're talking about a whole different ballgame, aren't
Man, for real, for real. No, he's so serious.
we? I'm
But,
so serious.
That's all I got for you guys today, man.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah. That's the rest of our series.
Cool.
We're gonna have another series further later on in the future, going more in depth.
Yeah.
And we'll probably continue on from here. Maybe what you can do with the property after you have it.
Yeah.
You know, stabilizing that asset.
We can even hop into a series about how to get into your first short-term rental and how to sustain it. You know what I mean?
Ooh,
Yeah, so
I like
that's-
that.
yeah, we
Because I
could-
got questions, boy. You know, I got questions for those STR dudes.
Yeah, I
so
mean,
let's hear it.
There's a couple like we have that one. I even maybe even thinking about a credit series and how to obtain
Yeah.
business credit,
No,
personal
for
credit,
real. And velocity banking.
and leverage it
Yes.
to fuel those investments. But we got some stuff coming for you.
We got a lot of stuff coming, man, for real. We say it all the time. Thank you, everybody who's been on the journey with us so far. We appreciate you. You know what I mean? Stick with us, share the content, and help us get this word out, for real.
that part. Like, follow, subscribe, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, guys. So AD's got our beat for the day.
All right. So the B for today is be clear. So be clear, it goes back to that crystal clear criteria. Understand what you're looking for, what your goals are for that property, your exit strategy, how much you're trying to put down, what your purchase price is, all those things. You need to be clear. So that way, when you get a property across your desk and it's not what you need, you can move on. And being clear is also going to help you not get into an asset that's not going to serve you in your future. Because let me tell you something, you can be clear on your goals, you can be clear on your criteria, and still end up with the property that's not working out. So if you're operating and you're not clear, it's only going to be worse for you. So be clear.
Be clear, be you, and be uncommon.